Afro-Latinos, Morenas, and African Americans have always been at the center of progress throughout the American continent, at the structures of Euro-Americans and Euro-Latinos. Some of the questions for our panelists are: have you ever seen or experienced anti-Blackness in the US Latino community? Where and how have you seen or experienced anti-Blackness in Latin America? Hi, my name is Francisco Escobar, and Latino Entertainment presents Conversamos.
Yo, is it that wrong? I'm making a song, taking it back for the platform that I formed. You should help me to transform. I run the reservoir, the predator, like a hungry carnivore when I'm breaking through these heavy.
We have an expert panel ready to discuss, but first, please check out our fundraising initiative for this episode. Black Lives Matter Greater New York People's Food Program, a fundraising effort to provide food and essential supplies in response to COVID-19. Donate today. Also, this episode's book spotlight is White Latino Privilege, Caribbean Latino Perspectives in the Second Decade of the 21st Century by Dr. Gabriel Haslip-Viera, a volume by mostly young millennial and Generation X Caribbean Latinos who mostly define themselves as non-white or Black, as they discuss the issues of white Latino privilege as it operates in the United States, the Spanish-speaking Caribbean, and the rest of Latino America. Now let's get into our panel. We have Andres Rivera, Gabriel Red, Kim Cuevas, Daniel Angel Varela, and hosting this episode is Miss Rosalind Lake Montero. Let's get started.
Today I want to talk to you guys about toxic masculinity within the Latino household, why we should support Black Lives Matter, and basically what's the dialogue that we need to have in our Latino community so we can get through that. Because I know something that I would like to say as a woman, as an outsider looking in, I know toxic masculinity is something that I've seen in a lot of the cultures. I don't know if you guys want to share. I actually want to commend you guys to share. What do you think about when you hear the words and the phrase toxic masculinity when it comes to your own culture?
I mean, toxic masculinity, it means a lot. I've been doing a lot of self-discovery on what that means and within my culture and what that looks like. There's this notion specifically in the Latino community that men make the rules. They set the pace for everything like that. They're the ones that work, and then women come home and ellos son la que cocinan and stuff like that. And I don't believe that that's the case, but that's how I've seen it a lot manifest in our culture. So I try to provide a space for women to do what makes their heart happy and what makes them happy, and trying to change that outlook on life. It's not a man's world. It's equal parts, and we need to respect that and cherish that and promote that.
I think toxic masculinity is one of those things where you assume that you as a male, you're the most dominant, especially when it comes to relationships. If you're married or if you have a partner, or especially if you have children, you don't want to have that outlook as to, you run everything, or rather everything goes your way. Or, for me being a Black man, I grew up in the, young man in the 90s, popular culture, neighborhood. And, it's one of the things where, I have a house where it's like my mom and my aunties were, and, I was one of those fortunate to go to Catholic school. So, it was one of the things where it's like, where's your father, and everything, so it's one of the things where it's like, we're not around, we're in prison and everything else. So that's my outlook.
But all of you guys have shared your perspective on toxic masculinity, correct? So within our own communities, I have a very close colleague of mine that shared that while our sisters are screaming Black girl magic, our brothers are disappearing, right? And that spoke volumes to me because it was March 16, around that time when the coronavirus broke out. So as Black and brown males, you guys already face a lot of things from our own communities, and to see that people that look like you, specifically Andres and Gabriel, are getting a knee on their neck, and you have a fight from the communities that we both serve, you know, the Latino and the Black community, in terms of should we support the Black Lives Matter movement? Should we not? I want to know, because I want to ask you guys, two guys first, only because I know that as a Afro-Latina woman, my first experience has always been this one of my skin prior my nationality or where I'm from. I've always faced, and you know, I was raised by my dad, a very dark-skinned Dominican man. And my dad has always said to me, when a police officer stops you, they're not going to ask you where your accent's from. They're going to look at this first and foremost. Because Andres, you know, the Dominican Republic, we have a lot of issues. I'm very unapologetic when I speak, but we have a lot of issues with our own people accepting that we're Black. But I look at you now and I'm like, oh my gosh, we could be siblings, you know, because of our pigment. So I want to know, how do you feel about the Black Lives Matter movement as an Afro-Dominican? Andres, por favor.
Yeah, thank you. And I have a lot of the same similar experiences as you. Like when somebody looks at me, they're not like, is he Dominican? No, it's completely the opposite. I've had interactions with the police that haven't been great. I've had multiple instances where people just look at me and they think I'm Black, and I am. Let's stop there. And they'll treat me differently behind that. I think when talking about the movement, I heard somebody say, like, do you prefer to be called in the movement, is it African American or Black? How should people like interpret you? And the answer was Black. Short answer was Black. The reason behind that is because some people don't identify with being African American. Some Black people don't look to Africa as their heritage because in the slave trade and during that history they were stripped away from their African roots. So you're a Black American in the States. With me, I identify with being from the Dominican Republic, but I am still, like I said, Black. And honestly, it's been really difficult having conversations with other Dominicans, and it comes from our history. So it is, people think when they think of the Dominican Republic, they think they were freed from the Spanish colonizers, and that is not the case. We were first a part of the entire island of Hispaniola, and we got our revolution from the Haitians. And in 1844, I got all the facts. I got you, whatever you want to go. But then, after a couple years after our independence, we had this dictator by the name of Rafael Trujillo, which some people love and some people hate. And his main objective was to adelantar la raza, blancar la raza, and basically to make a distinction between Black people in our island and those of fair, lighter skin, and thought that, similar to like Hitler, that that the way to better the race and to better the country is to make it whiter, and making those across the border from us, or from Haiti, are our enemies. And I think that while we were able to get rid of his practicings and his teaching and understand that they were wrong, a lot of Dominicans still believe that they are better because of their lighter skin and the way that they look. So when you bring that history here to the Black Lives Matter movement, you see that people aren't willing to just jump right in, because they think there's a distinction between Black and Latinos, and that, at least in the Dominicans, Cubans, Puerto Ricans, that isn't the case. That is why I stand with like Black Lives Matter, and like I try to push that movement forward. I've donated, protested. I try to be involved as much as possible and have these conversations. with family members that even think that it shouldn't be the case. Arguing of how people see us and how people treat us, that just isn't right, and that needs to change. So there's no distinction between me and a black person.
I held another panel with a group of Afro Latinas from everywhere the other day, and it was so crazy to me because one very close friend of mine, she's Dominican, Johanna, she shared that, and that's something I didn't even know. Simon Bolivar, the liberator of Latin America, actually got all his statistics and strategies from Toussaint Louverture, si lo digo correcto, and this is where the Black Lives Matter movement occurs first without a name, because Haiti, being that is the first black republic that is free in the Western Hemisphere, what more Black Lives Matter movement, momentum do you need than that itself? I did an interview with Ana Belique. She is an activist in the Dominican Republic for Black Haitians, because it's one thing to be undocumented it's one thing to be Black in Dominican Republic, but another thing is to be Haitian. And I don't know how much, Andres, you know about this. If you're Haitian, in 2013 they changed it that if you're Haitian and you're born of parents that are Haitian, you're still not a resident of the country or a citizen of the country. Exactly. And that is very much in alignment with the anti-Blackness sentiments that the Dominican Republic has had since its beginning, since before the island separated. So, I mean, I'm very transparent with everything I say. So, Andres, you really are de lo mío, because, hay muchos dominicanos que se confunden, and I'm just like, we need a mirror and we need to look behind our ear, because we all got a little bit of Blackness and a little bit of indigenous in us. So we have to honor our ancestors' battles, Gabriel, I want to go with you porque I'm a teacher, and it's so important to me that this movement is not a moment thing, I sympathize with you having a child and educating your kin. Everything I do and everything that I'm doing, all of my initiatives, panels like this, is for me to gain information so I can educate my kids better. So even I, as a teacher, as somebody that has never talked to your child, I'm an outsider. How would you want the world to interact with your Afro-Latino child, Gabriel, if you don't mind?
Well, my thing is, my whole thing is mutual progress. And one of the reasons why I took on the idea of learning Spanish is not so much that, my son's mother and we fell in love or what have you. It's more or less, me being from Inglewood on the south side and her being on the other side, like near Cicero. It's a big gap between, Black, then it's, Latino, then it's the Irish, you run into a lot of different cultures in between that. And, I got into reggaeton, and I heard the history of it, how, it was started in Panama when, Jamaicans came down there to work on, I forget what was going on, but, how it all started. I thought that was just so beautiful. And I was like, I can't put down a Nicky Jam album anymore, or Plan B. I'm so enthused about the music. My son loves it, and it's just one reason why I think through music we should be able to connect. And it's just I think through the issues, through the things that's come going on, with of course with Mr. Floyd that just passed, and the stuff that does happen here in Chicago on a daily basis. I think it's one of the things that made you wake up and, just come closer. Like, what? We're all in this together. Especially, being African American on the south side or the west side, or a Latino on the south side and west side of Chicago. It's terrible because, it's one thing that divides us nothing more if it's not our, this racial profiling. It's, the fact that we can't reach each other. Like, hermano or brother, do you need help? Ayúdame or something, And this is one of them things where it's like, I just wish that, we can all see that and, help each other out. So, that's one of the reasons why I did learn Spanish, because of, before prior to this movement, it became very essential to me to getting African Americans and Latinos together.
Even the anti-Blackness there, like the most celebrated artists in the music culture aren't the dark skinned ones. It's the same. It's the J Balvins that look white passing. It's
the Bad Bunny.
It's the Bad Bunny, which I love me some Bad Bunny. He fights a good fight.
Cocuyuelas.
and those artists, but they forget where the like these movements and these songs started. Another one that's big is like Rosalia, who plays Latin music, but she's from Spain, and
Yeah, yeah.
you forget like the Tego Calderons of the world, the Anthony Santos of the world, who are darker and aren't as celebrated in the culture, and it's again it's another example of that anti-blackness rhetoric.
To talk about uniting the Latino and Afro descendants. And my thing is, how dare you ask me how to unite us when we've already been united? So because of a racial issue, now we're opposite. So, I'm having a very hard time having those types of conversations with a lot of my friends because I'm gonna be very transparent. A lot of them are acting like it was never an issue. Like being black has never been an issue in our countries or in our communities. Pero we are growing up with phrases like "todas las culpas se la echan al negro" or "le echan la culpa al negro." So like,
The black
if
sheep.
we have phrases like that growing up, what is really the dialogue? How do we want to move forward with within our own communities? In either of you guys could go. Feel free to be unapologetic.
I think it's just important to educate people and like unapologetically be like, yo, you're black. Like, stop ignoring your roots. I worked for Telemundo and selling advertising and stuff like that, and they were try to put other faces there as opposed to Univision, where we're only showing the one rodeo cowboy countryside story that always had this blonde Mexican that could have looked like Carmen Diaz or anything like that. So it was good to be there and to like push that forward a little bit, but we have to continue to push more and make people uncomfortable about where they come or about the knowledge and stuff like that.
But it always starts at home. I feel like when it comes to curriculum, it always helps. For me, I grew up on the South Side, of course, in Inglewood. I say that a lot because for me to be a black guy in Inglewood, it was unheard of because we had a private school in the neighborhood, and I was fortunate to go to it. And there was no black teachers. They're all white teachers. We had all these saints and patriarchs. We never knew if they looked like us, but we was always taught to follow like them. I think that's essential. As I get older, now that I think, for my son, for these other generations, it helps to know that your history and your background. Me and my son. I think this was like almost like early February, maybe this was last February, but we was talking about we read this book. And it was talking about Stephen the Moor, Stavanico. He was this Moroccan, the Spanish Moroccan that came and settled here. Like, wow, Dad, I didn't know that. It's like it's things like that. It's just like always goes unnoticed in neighborhoods, and it's just like for us to know more people that represent like us. Whether you're black or Spanish or both. It just helps and paves the way for us. So I think that more schools, more. Once you have the opportunity, you should definitely, incorporate that into like any plan, like people that look like us. So.
And how are you? Are you having conversations with your son?
You know what? It's weird because on the South Side, if you know where we are in Chicago, that's not needed as much. With these, because everybody looks like us. So if he's not hearing it from me, he's definitely hearing it from his mama, his auntie, or his friends. But I try not to mention my greatest philosopher growing up was Booker T. Washington. And, the biggest thing was mutual progress. No matter what he said, us going through this, at the Cotton States Convention, he said it doesn't matter the fact that we are slaves or they don't believe in us. It's more or less when we get the opportunity to read and learn and educate ourselves, we do so and we invest in ourselves. And I think that's like, once we get that opportunity, that's one thing that we all should do. Invest in our neighborhoods, invest in ourselves, invest in our families. I think that's very essential. So,
Dang, like that's the spirit. Like just get up and go. Like, andale, like, But, and then even here in the local community, like we had a big protest on Saturday and it was like all student leaders. It was like 8 of them, and it was crazy. They were all so lit, and they were just like everyone was just dancing and like just walking together.
That's beautiful because when I was in college, I did. I felt myself in between LSA and BSA a lot. I founded the LSA club at Bridgewater College when I did my undergrad, and I was very big in the BSA club, but I didn't feel like it was. I didn't feel comfortable enough to hold a position because I felt like I wasn't black enough for the group of the black body of students that we had at the school, and that's something that the systematically we're so divided that we don't even think that we can even have conversations with each other when we're so comfortable with being in the same space to begin with. So where and how have you seen or experienced anti-blackness in the USA Latinx community? So
I've experienced that almost everywhere I go. I grew up in the Bronx, and even though I was Dominican, I was still like, "Oh, es el negro." That's the black kid. They used to have this really fucked up joke that now I'm like I had to take it to my therapist and shit, because they would every time like we were leaving the classroom and stuff like that, and the teacher turned off the lights, everybody would be like, "Yo, where Andres go?" And that was a constant like haha like joke that I experienced. I remember taking the bus, and as a kid I had a big book bag. I was one of those nerdy kids that had a bunch of books in his bag and whatever, and like I would bump into people on the bus. And this little viejita one day was like, "Oh, estos negros siempre están haciendo desorden." These black kids are always making causing trouble or whatever. And I looked at her and instead of being like cursing her out in Spanish or whatever, I was just like, "Oh, con permiso, I'm sorry I was in your way," or some shit. I was always taught to be to be to try to not be to not mess things up and things like that, and like kind of be embarrassed with my skin. It was only in growing up that I felt like beautiful in my own skin, and to experience that, like I get another experience I went to Syracuse University, and it was a predominantly white school and whatever, and like everyone just like assumed they would call me Andre Rivers. That was like my black name or whatever. Yeah.
I'm late.
Angel. Angel dust if you have my hair on.
And I would always like have this disposition of, no, I'm Dominican, I'm not black, and this, that, and the third, and like would argue within myself and with others, to the point that I've like more have accepted it, and like, yeah, no, my name is Andres, but I am black, and so it's countless experiences all over the U.S. and Latin America, and when I go back to DR and like everywhere I go, I kind of have to. Everyone assumes that I'm black until I say my name, and until I start speaking Spanish.
Do you find yourself? I'm gonna ask you a little bit more because I've shared that experience. I used to I was an ESL student. I was a black ESL student new to the country, and I used to ask God, please don't let the teacher turn the light off, because I cannot deal with this shit today. I cannot deal with this name calling. I just wanted to thank you for sharing that, because the more panels that I keep doing, the more that I see that to be like a regular thing. Like, cuando yo vine para acá, yo no solamente era negra, yo era también latina, pero yo era latina que no hablaba inglés, you know? So I'm trying to, and I was even having this conversation with my boyfriend's mom, because this is a cool job I didn't know people could do. An ESL counselor to kids that come from our countries, you know? So that's how education has changed so much. So with me, I wish I had that, because I didn't have anybody. Like, I would come to my counselors and I would be like, yo, you know, Adelina, she was a Mexican girl. Adelina is bothering me in class, and she was this beautiful Colombian, you know, fair skin, model looking type, Sofia Vergara. And then there's me, and then she's probably like, but if y'all don't understand each other in the same language, what am I supposed to do with that? You know?
Yeah.
So
You want the tea on that?
you know, we fall through cracks. I feel like Afro Latinos
so
fall through the cracks. So thank you for sharing. Let's see, Gabriel, in the Latinx community, have you ever experienced a sentiment of anti-Blackness?
Yeah, you know, of course, being Black, but you know, my first actually run-in with that was like my freshman year in high school. I was, you know, I was like, I didn't go to like the traditional schools in my neighborhood. I went to like a school like far west. You know, I was fortunate to play basketball. You know, and you know, it was a predominantly white school. You know, and like, you know, I never heard nobody say it to my face, but you know, one person came back. You know, I think it was during lunch. They was like, "Hey, Gabe, you know, somebody just said that, you know, called you a, you know." I'm like, "Oh man, you know, like, you know, to be the only Black guy there." You know, well, to be one of the four of us, because like we were all on a basketball team, but we was all in different lunch periods. And to hear like somebody tell me that somebody said that, you know, it's like a rush, because you know, shit, it's like it's just me. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's crazy to be like, as they say, the raisin in the rice bowl. You know what I mean? And you know, just one thing. You know, my second time was like when I was 19. I got a car. You know, like as y'all probably know from sports players like Derrick Rose or Jeremy Pargo, if y'all remember him. R. Kelly and all them, you know, Inglewood, like, it's crazy at night, man. And I think it was one time I had just got my first car, and you know, police was like everywhere. And these two white police officers, they came out, and they, you know, they just, you know, told me to get out of my car, you know, took everything out of my car. You know, I just bought these banging dunks, man. And she told me to take them off. She threw them in front of this club that's in front, like on the main street. You know, and everybody's looking like, man, you can't do that, man, stuff like that. And they just took off, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever. You know, they just assume that, you know, you do certain things. You know, that's one of the things, man. It's just like, it really bothers me when I think about it right now, because, you know, man, it's just a lot of stuff you don't understand. Like the pressure, like going into like all white neighborhoods here in Illinois. Yeah. You know, man, it's just the adrenaline, you could feel it. You know what I'm saying? Like I try to stay, you know, I'm from the South Side, like I said, but I moved to the North Side near the Cubs, Wrigley Field, you know, to finish my schooling. And, you know, man, it's like, it's a whole different lifestyle up here. You know, not too many people are racist up here, but it's like, you know, the things you do on the South Side, or rather that happens on the North Side, you just can't do on the South Side. You know, like I see like they have a lot of bars up here on this side of town. And, you know, I see a lot of fights, you know, a lot of like stuff. And like on our side of town, you would been arrested. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like one of them things like, wow, it's like the whole culture shock with like flipping on the sides of towns. And then when I bring my son up here, he's like, Dad, he can come outside drinking and yelling and stuff. Like, you know, you don't hear that on our side of town, you know? So it's just like, man.
Yeah, there's one, I always think of like, when Latinos specifically, like they come from the countries, they're kind of so grateful to be here. I find out like specifically like with the older generation, like they are so happy to like be here that they think that just being here is like good enough. Existing is good enough, and they don't want to shake the system. So I have a lot of conversations. I have a lot of conversations with like older generations, including even like my parents and stuff like that, where they're like, "Yo, Black people aren't good, and then they have more crimes in their neighborhood, and this, that, and the third, because of X, Y, and Z, and like you can't do bad things and stuff like that." And I'm like, no. Like I try to educate them and tell them like it's a system that was created for us to not be able to move forward, and we have to challenge that system to make it a better place. It isn't good enough just being here. It isn't just good enough to just be included. We can't be scared to like mess things up. So I'm always like, yo, we fighting this fight.
You know, I feel like, you know, when you said that it's not good enough just to be here, I feel like, you know, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about like, you know, finding someone that had that privilege to go further, because I feel like a lot of us, you know, get on that stage and, you know, like for me, like for being an African American and then coming to being a first generation of graduates, you know, not just college, but, you know, also in high school. I'm the first male to graduate high school and college in my family. So to get to that point, and then it's like, damn, you know, it may take you a little longer to get your degree, and then you hear everybody, you know what I'm saying? It's like one of them things to stay focused and stay motivated once you get to that stage.
Right.
That's what I see a lot of people, like actually, I don't know if you guys got time, but if you ever actually look into NEIU, they had switched presidents and everything in the school, and one of the biggest thing was they had a big dropout rate of like African Americans, because there was like a lot of enrolling African Americans, but then it was like so they would say like there was nobody to show them the way, and I thought that was pretty interesting that you brought that up though, man. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's it's true, and I think that is why I'm like big on like mentorship of people that look like me. Like any message that I ever get on LinkedIn from anybody that look like me, is black, brown, I'm responding to them. I'm going to take the call. I might not be able to help them. They might not be qualified for the job that they asked me, but I am going to talk to them, and I'm going to help them at least push forward. Because when we get here, we need to look at people that look like us, to believe that we can make it to that next level.
Right. So how do we address the sentiment of the global sentiment of anti-blackness in our household, in our communities, moving into the 21st century?
At least coming from my experience as I'm a first generation American. My family is Caribbean. And the way that they were able to instill in me that no matter what my skin color was or who I was able to interact with, like they needed me to know that I had African descendants. And that starts by being able to be open about history, about the African diaspora everywhere, about slavery and how those ships, the stops where it had, and where these people were, and where this diaspora is right now. I think it's very important that we start teaching our kids that slavery didn't just come to the United States, didn't just happen here. It happened in a lot of places in Latin America and the Caribbean. So I think that that's the most important place to start, is by reteaching our kids history.
Well, from my studies, like just last semester, I was able to read a lot of books of the most recent, like Black Indigenous, like histories. And it's just crazy to think that across time, the Southwest region, like Mexico, all the way going up to, NorCal on the mission system with Catholicism, and, and then you have over here in Florida where you have the Caribbean folk, like Cuevas was saying, like we have the Tainos there and the Taino spirit. And what does that mean with voodoo? When you have the spirit, and what does voodoo turn into? It turns into different things. Like I knew it as Santeria because that was my family's heritage, right? So it's just kind of crazy how in some way we're all connected with our different regions and our different time lapse or whatever, like timelines, but our language is still like rooted together. Like that's why we're all able to share like different perspectives and somehow be able to like, oh yeah, I definitely experienced that, but like in this way here in my community, right? So
that anti-blackness is incredible to me to really see people like that. Like I don't know how you can be proud of being from any Latin country and be anti-black. It just doesn't. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, especially if you are educated and like know where you come from.
You know what? I don't think you can actually call yourself that if you don't include black. I don't know if you guys pay attention to Pero-like and one of the things they be doing is those genealogies and it's just like so you have to include black. I had the luxury of doing 3 genealogies. I did African ancestry, I did 23andMe and ancestry. I have my roots in was it Albacete or Alicante in Spain and everything, and of course Morocco and everything. So man, it's like it's one of them things where man you have to include not African American, but the fact that you're African descendants at some point. You know what I mean? I think that's that's essential to all of us growing to I seen a post yesterday. It said something about in the age of information, there's no excuse to be ignorant. And that's one of the things I really do believe in. You have to include African Americans and Latinos and Native Americans. That's something this country was based on us as pioneers. I can go back to my family arrived in South Carolina, and at some point they got on the Trail of Tears with Native Americans. And my grandmother eventually settled in Mississippi, and before coming to Chicago. You know what I mean? Even in like Inglewood, before Inglewood was Inglewood, it was called Junction Grove, and there was not too many African Americans here. My grandmother was actually the first African American on the block. Martin Luther King said when he came up here, to Inglewood and Marquette Park, 63rd, 67th Street here, you better run being black. You know what I'm saying? My uncles went to school, up the street, and they couldn't finish because they was being chased out of school every day. You know what I'm saying? So it's just one of them things, it's just like to see how far this country has come off African Americans and Latinos, and Native Americans. Like, that's not something, I think that's very, very ignorant. And, it's just, that really bothers me that somebody would like exclude that out of their heritage or out of their history books,
The thing that I wanted to say was that the way that I kind of deal with it on a daily basis is kind of like, I call it out. Like, anytime I hear somebody say something anti-black around me, I'm like, nah, B, we're not doing this. And I have an older sister who did that for me before I even knew to do it. She's much lighter than me. And whenever we took a picture together, someone would be like, how are you guys, brother? Like, people would tell her, like, you're so pretty. Your brother is, how are you her brother? Like, tú eres moreno, like you're dark and whatever, and trying to like, trying to divide us by our color. And she was always the one to speak out, like, hell no, my brother is beautiful. My brother is this, is that. So I thank her for that. And now I do it too. Anytime I see someone around me, older, younger, try to say something that's anti-black or anti-against this movement or just in general, I try to school them right there and there and tell them to like, go learn your shit, go learn your history, because the way you're thinking is completely wrong. There's no way you can look at people like Sammy Sosa, even though we know he's a part of this. He's part of this anti-blackness. People like Sammy Sosa, Osuna, and these different characters, and not be black, and not see your African roots, and not see your blackness in there. I make fun of people for not doing it because it's just that sometimes satire is the only way people learn. So it's just calling it out. If you want to be proud of who you are, you got to call that shit out.
I'm glad you said that, porque my dad cleaned shoes. He used to shine shoes with Sammy Sosa in San Pedro. And when Sammy Sosa, if you look at Sammy Sosa now, he looks nothing like he should look like. So it's quite confusing to me, as a child that looked up to him. I was like, wow, este tipo salió de la isla. He made big billions, but you want to assimilate and look like people that never opened the door for you. That's crazy. So I think even within our own communities, when you are, and then I'm going to go ahead and se lo voy a pasar a Daniel y a Kim. When you are a Black immigrant, right, you're not dealing only with the fact that you're an immigrant. You're also dealing with the fact that you're Black. So I in my own experience as an Afro-Latina woman, yo siempre me he fijado, I've always seen that my family members have always asked me and told me to aim to act and look like the people that are at the top. The problem with that is that the people that are at the top do not look like us. So what does that mean? Do I need to adopt what they're doing? And why do I need to do that? And why is that even a thing? So with me, I have invested my time, my soul, my heart, and passion and everything into my African American students, right? I teach Black and Brown youth, but I'm full-time in Southeast with 99% Black students from Southeast DC. And what I've seen to notice is that a lot of our Latino teachers have left. I've been at the school now for almost 3 years. I just got my new contract, so I'm on year 3. A lot of my kids say that I've been the longest there, but it's because a lot of the Latino teachers, they lack that connection, right? That that cultural sensitivity. I see you, Daniel, clapping. Okay, thank you. Because when I speak about my kids, and that's why I was asking you, Gabriel, about your son, it's so important to me as a teacher to make sure my cup is full, because in my home, my dad made sure he filled that cup up for me. So now I can give them what's spilling over, because you also, and this is as young professionals, this is an advice to you guys, you cannot pour from an empty cup, right? So with everything that's going on, if you guys need to take a minute and take care of yourself, do so, because we are not going to, we're the last generation that needs to experience this. We are not, our babies are not going to experience.
True.
You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
True.
I see you, Gabe. I see you, Jay, because it's just,
True.
it's so irritating. You know, people are saying that the United States hadn't had as much as unrest since the 60s. And now in the Latino community, we're divided and we have the same enemy, which is Donald Trump. What's going on? We got to educate, connect, and heal. And it starts with us.
Before you pass it on to them, there's one thing that you said that I want to point out is you said that there are people that the people that look like us aren't there. They some of them are, and they're there, and because of their skills and stuff. Like the only people that I see that are color that look like me are baseball players. So growing up, I only thought I could be, the only way like I could make it was to be a baseball player. I never in my life even thought I could go to school, stay in school, and like and graduate from college and work at this job where I sit at a desk and talk about music and sell things. So it's putting faces like ours, that ones that have made it to show a different path for people, because we're not just like peloteros and basketball players and shit like that.
And you touched on something that's so crazy, because that's the same thing that a lot of my African American students share. And you can only make it out as an athlete. What's going on with that?
Yeah.
You can, as a male, what is it that you can only make it out as an athlete? As a woman, Kim, I see you that you're here. I was told that I was only going to be able to make it out si yo me quedo calladita, cabeza bajada. So for the men and the women in our own communities, it's like we don't even get to pick how we are going to be successful.
¿Qué te digo yo? I I was gonna say, I just hear you guys talking. I'm like, there is such an anti-blackness culture in Dominican, just culture, que tú te quedas como que, ven acá, y este hombre me está hablando que él no es negro y es del color de la noche. And so sometimes I have to hold myself, because I want to be like you. I want to like go at them. I want to go at their throats, you know, but I think that that's the moment where we start educating even the older folks in Dominican culture, you know, in Dominican communities, is like, you guys need to know where you guys come from. You guys need to be educated on this, because guess what? I had so much dissonance growing up. Porque for you guys that are Dominican, you know, a mí me decían jabá. Yep. And I was like, because I would get from the Latino kids, I'm like, they would be like, you're not, like, when they would know that I was Dominican, they were like, oh, because that makes sense, porque tú tienes el cabello malo y tienes la nariz grandísima. I would like stress over my hair being straightened, like hot combs every Saturday, braids so that my hair was protected, because I was scared of someone, a Latino kid, telling me you're not Latino enough because your hair is bad. And so I would be like, you know what? There was just this dissonance growing up. Like, okay, I guess for them I'm not Latino enough, but I guess I'm too light to be considered black. So where am I here? ¿A dónde que yo sirvo aquí? So I think that for the sake of our kids coming up, for them not to go through those things, it's very important that we're vocal about it. Mm-hmm. We're hella vocal about it. That you don't have to grow up to be una sumisa muchachita, que tú te casas con un tipo y tú estás en tu casa tranquilita, cocinando. Or your husband, he's not, tú sabes, hasta los dominicanos, los hombres, tú no sirves nada más para jugar béisbol. Solamente. you're also worthy of getting an education and being who you want to be, not just going and dando una pelota y a ver si tú lo haces la grande liga. That's not all you're here for, you know. And I know that a lot of people they see us that way, but that's not all we're here for.
No. Thank you for sharing. That's a very important thing, because I saw that, Daniel, you put the book Becoming by Michelle Obama, and my school just happened to, that was the theme of our school year. And that's a whole nother conversation with who's educating our kids and how they're educating our kids, and how people that look like us could be detrimental or beneficial to the development of our kids. Because you also have a lot of people that, if you're teaching a book on Becoming by Michelle Obama, and you yourself have not healed and have not looked in the mirror to know who you have become, how are you really touching the youth, right? That's just some food for thought. I'm sorry. I just had to put that on the side.
That's going here and then going there, and like never finishing school in one place until middle school, when I actually had those 3 years in like one community, which was like the first time that's ever happened to me. So I was just like, whoa, like I haven't had this much stability since kindergarten and Head Start. Like that's how long ago it was. So I think definitely like just being able to meet new kids and like in different communities and know like, oh wow, like we're all like feeling it in different places. Like, you know, it's the same story on all sides from wherever you go. Like it's the same education system all over, and that's really what it is.
Thank you so much. We're going to read something by Malcolm X, because that's who I am and that's who we are and that's what we're doing here. And I just want to get your guys' reaction before we close. The most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. ¿Qué pasa cuando tú eres an Afro-Latino woman? ¿Y qué pasa when you are an Afro-Latino woman? So you're dealing with those intersectionalities, right? So what do I need to know from an Afro-Latino male perspective in terms of protecting you? And what do you need from the Afro-Latina woman or the Black woman in the general to protect her? Because I'm going to share this with you guys. We are in this fight together, and everything starts at the house, but everything also starts in our communities. So how are we protecting the next Black man and the next Black woman?
I feel like it's all just gonna come back to an education area, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Porque es que a veces I think that I don't know about you guys, but I feel sometimes que yo digo, okay, estoy leyendo la noticia, estoy viendo todo, y le pasa algo a un latino, pero le pasa algo a un Black person, and I'm like, oh my God, like, it's exhausting, tú sabes, me tiene súper cansada, y yo me imagino que estamos todos súper cansados, tú me entiendes, and I think that being able to relate to the Afro-Latinx man, and being able to understand how both of those identities come together within a man and their struggles, because not only are they having to go through the struggles of being a Black man in America, they also have to go through the struggles of being a Latino man in America. And that's just, you know, I'm just going to say something that I remember. I was in 3rd grade, and this gringuito came up to me, and he asked me what I was, and I told him I was Dominican, and él me dijo, but what is that? Y yo le dije, oh, well, I tried to explain to him the best that I could, how my dad explained it to me. I said, look, it's a mixture of things. I'm Black, I'm Latino. It's a mixture of things. And he said, you know what, he was like, damn, you know, he was a young boy, but lo primero que él me dijo que le salió de la boca así sin pensar fue, damn, like, you're the worst of both worlds. Was así, and I was like, that opened my eyes, because I was like, damn, like, we really are like just trying to deal with both worlds at the same time and not knowing what the heck is coming at us from any angle. And so the first thing that we need to do is also being able to relate to each other, not putting each other down, because at the end of the day, we're the same person. Lo único que como hombre tú vas a pasar por cosas distinta a como uno pasa como mujer, because for us it's more of like, para una mujer, para nosotros, especialmente la dominicana, lo que te dicen es, tú tienes que aprender a cocinar, y tienes que casarte con un hombre, y tienes que ser calladita te mama bonita, y qué sé yo qué. And so for me, I think that for Afro-Latino men, because they come up in families like us, and ellos oyen eso they hear that all the time, that being said to us as women. And I think that for them to be able to help us in that way is them realizing that they need to support us in our dreams, not just staying at the house, not just having, cooked food, which is important. I'm not saying it's not important, but also support us in our dreams, in our educational dreams, in our professional dreams. Make sure that we're also as satisfied as you are, because let me tell you something, I want to be able to be educated about everything that you're going through as a man, as an Afro-Latino man, and be able to support you too. Everything. I want to be able to support you, because I know you didn't just come here, como dijo André, a jugar béisbol. Tú no hiciste, that's not all you're here for.
The one thing that we have to do is everything that Kim said, spot on. And to add to that is just like, look out for one another. I think it was, for those of you who don't know that, Francisco and I are in the same fraternity. And just this week, I had a conversation with my chapter brothers, who are all Latino men, and that went to Syracuse and graduated, and some of them are still in school and different points of their lives and stuff. And the conversation that we were having dealt with more of sexual assault and sexual misconduct. And we were talking about that and trying to talk, be able to talk about like providing a safe space and looking out for one another. And I think that conversation leads over to this one. A lot of the things that were shared there are similar to this one. We have to look out and speak out on things that we see are wrong, like period. If it doesn't matter where we are, if we see a woman in an uncomfortable situation, we have to make space to talk to them and believe their stories and believe their experiences, and understand what they went through, and do the same for everyone around us. Call that shit out and make sure that that's not available. When it talks about race, when we are in a crowd or in a group, we see a man or a woman that looks like us. We have to provide space for them to feel comfortable and allow them to share their experiences and share their stories and make them feel validated. If we're in a group and someone needs to speak on something, we need to provide that space for them. And just kind of support each other. I think it goes back to like what I said earlier. If a Latino or a Black person wants to talk to you about anything, about what you do at work, how much you make, your experiences at home, shit like that, like stop feeling ashamed of yourself for talking about those things. I know it's very difficult. I was taught almost by nature to not feel like any space is open for us, and that we, like you said, like Kim said, calladito se ve más bonito, just being quiet and just putting your head down and doing what you have to do. But I think that's the tactic for us for others to show that people like us don't exist, and not inspire anybody else to speak up and talk out loud.
Oh, and I just want to cut in real quick, because I know like we know this and it might sound kind of like something that's not even important to us, but I can't stress this enough, because I've encountered so many people that think otherwise. Latino is not a race. Being Latinx is not a race.
And you're going to mute yourself and just leave it like that, like an open ending, because you know you're right. I love it. Just leave it like that. I love it. Period. This is something I wrote because I feel like Afro-Latinos, we're in two worlds, right? But we are coming into our third world, which is our own comfort. That's how I feel, at least. Yo navego, I see you note in your head, I navigate through two different worlds, but I'm also navigating those two worlds with two languages that are those of colonizers, right? So I was very inspired one day after teaching during Black History Month, and I wrote, La mujer negra que habla español, the Black woman that speaks English. Aunque mis lenguas son imperialistas, my pigment is the loudest form of revolution. Mientras aún busco my pigment is the loudest form of revolution. Déjame arreglarlo para recording, because I don't have my glasses on. La mujer negra que habla español, the black woman that speaks English, aunque mis lenguas son imperialistas, my pigment is the loudest form of revolution. Mientras aún busco un mapa indicando de dónde soy, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. Soy el desarrollo en carne viva, and that's quoting Calle 13 at the end. I want you guys to continue to build yourselves up, connect, heal, educate, but remember that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So if you want to argue with your tia or your tío or your amigo and your amiga, make sure that your cup is full first and foremost, because these conversations can be very, I don't even have the word for it, but they could be very out there, and it could take a lot of your soul. So just make sure you're refilling those cups, because right now we're healing a trauma that's been going on in all the Americas for over 500 years. So I'm just going to put that out there. Since we were brought to this side of the world, it's been a lot of trauma, and now we are really addressing it because of the coronavirus. That's the first pandemic, but we've been dealing with the pandemic of racism since we were brought here, not on a first class plane ticket, but by force, So that's all I wanted to share. Any takeaways? Y se lo mando a Fernando para atrás. Un abrazo.
And with that said, that is all the time that we have. Thank you all for joining us. And thank you, Ms. Rosalind Lake Montero, for hosting this wonderful conversation. For everyone at home, make sure you like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Instagram at Latin_Entertainment_presents. Until next time here in Conversamos.
Yo, is it that wrong? I'm making a song, taking it back for the platform that I formed. You should help me transform. I run the reservoir, the predator, like a hungry carnivore. When I'm breaking through these heavy doors, this is Desert Storm. A metaphor to show I'm equipped and informed. I'm striking with the mega force, I'm lukewarm, your crew swarms. With the fear, my lyrics do harm. If you ain't lending a hand, I'm breaking your two arms, so listen. I'm sniffing the difference on my mission, I'm craving. I envision these premonitions like Raven, I'm gifted. I saved it, now it's time to shift to my haven. My advanced pace, it remains in a basin where I'm chasing pavements. Straight erasing with this pen.